Reset Podcast. And now your host, Jake Naraki.
What is going on, Reset Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Operation Self Reset. I am Jacob Naraki, and like always, thank you very much for joining me on this episode. Today is June 11th, and not only is this a new episode, and I'm very excited to share our guest for today, but also on a personal note, June 11th is actually mine and my wife's anniversary. 3 years into our marriage together. I'm trying to find the right words to say so I don't mess this up, just in case she catches wind of me speaking about our wedding anniversary on Operation Self Reset. And I just want to share with you guys that, you know what, during your marriage or relationships, you guys are going to get in arguments, disagreements, and sometimes you're going to blame the other person in that relationship. So I want to drag you guys into our marriage. This past weekend, we went up north to go visit my parents. Before we went up north, we stopped at a store to grab a couple of things. As you guys know, I have a 1-year-old and a dog. They were in the car with us. We were going up north as a big family. And I decided, honey, how about you take my wallet and run inside, grab those items, and come back out? She did so. 10 minutes later, she had a bag full of goodies. We went on our way. Well, during the car ride, the dog... Actually, this is pretty funny. We have a Bernese Mountain Dog, awesome dog, great personality. His name is Yogi, and Yogi has an ear infection. Well, to diagnose and to treat the ear infection, they gave us pills along with solution to put into his ears. Well, the pills have given him diarrhea. I apologize if you guys are eating right now, but I'm not going to go any further than that, but it gives him an upset stomach. So during this car ride, this dog weasels his way from the back where the trunk is all the way to the front in between our two chairs. You know, we have a Honda Odyssey, I think it's an 04 or something like that. And the dog, comes in between us, and he's panting, and he's nudging us, and he's putting paw on us. We're like, what the heck is going on with this dog? This is insane. This is totally erratic. He never does anything like this. So we decide to stop at the closest gas station. Maybe he has to go to the bathroom. We need to get him in the back seat. Maybe he's just too hot. Maybe it's to cool down, whatever. So we open up the car door. We make it to the gas station. He sprints out, and he runs to the field, and he does his business on the ground. And we're like, wow, he really was trying to tell us something, of course. It was like Lassie, Lassie's barking at us. And he's like, what's wrong, Lassie? But anyway, so during that whole, chaos moment of the dog making its way to the front and all of our, luggage and carry-ons and carry-ons, like it's an airplane for some odd reason, I'm talking about carry-ons. The dog kind of bumps everything out of the way. So along that path, the weekend progressed. It was a great time. On the way home Sunday, I was looking for my wallet. Couldn't find it anywhere. I searched all my clothing. I searched my bags, searched everything. And I assumed my wife forgot it in the grocery store. Just like any husband would, you blame your wife right away before you really look into all the resources. I scanned the car. I scanned everything. No luck. Well, my wife thought when the dog jumped out of the car, maybe it bumped the wallet off of something and it fell on the ground, what have you. So on our way back home, we stopped at that gas station. I asked the gas station manager, did you guys find a wallet? They said no. So I automatically assumed that my wife left it at the grocery store because there was no other way. I didn't use my wallet at all during the weekend. And you're probably thinking, well, don't you just keep it on you all the time? No, I had gym shorts on, and it wasn't really the most ideal situation to be carrying a wallet on me, but I brought it with me in the car. And so I'm trying to scan my brain, and I'm like, that's the only way. Well, of course, anytime that a man decides to blame his wife for something, of course it's going to come back and bite him. So this in the evening on Sunday night when we were unpacking, my wife found my wallet. And guess where it was? It was in the door compartment in my door, in the driver's side door. So not only did I really lay into her, and I thought, man, you left it there. Where I lost, like $60 I think I had in my wallet. But not only that, it's just like you guys. It's not so much the money, it's the credit cards, it's your ID, it's your health insurance card, it's all this crazy stuff that you keep in your wallet. Gone. Well, luckily my wife found it, and I had to apologize. And guess what my punishment was? A back massage. Yes, a back massage for, an undisclosed amount of time here. So that's so that if you're not married yet, I guess that's what you have to look forward to arguments that you blame on her, or if you're a woman and those arguments you blame on him, they will come back and get you. And sure enough, they did. And I apologize on public podcasting radio, we'll call it. I'm sorry. I messed up. I jumped the gun, literally, and I didn't look over everything correctly. So sorry about that. So anyway, let's dive into Operation Self Reset. So you're thinking yourself, that was a great story. What does it have to do with Operation Self Reset? Well, it just shows that every event in our life has to deal with some type of mental capacity. And even though this might not make sense, I'm going to pull it around anyway, because today we're talking to Todd Herman from the Peak Athlete, and he is all about the mental side, not only of athletics, but business, relationships, everything. He's a guy that's really in tune with the mindset of things. So a perfect guy to get on the Operation Self Reset platform here. I'm very excited to share his conversation with you guys. And that's all I got for you. So enjoy this interview, and we will see you on the backside of our conversation. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have on Todd Herman from thepeakathlete.com. This guy, I'm telling you, is going to blow your mind, literally, when it comes to changing small little things that are going on in your life to get you to that place that you want to be. Todd, thank you so much for getting on today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Absolutely.
You know what, Todd? Not too many people know about you. Do you mind sharing a quick background of who you are and where you came from?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up on a big farm and ranch in Western Canada, southeast of Calgary, Alberta. And from there, I live in New York City today, but I've traveled and worked and lived all across the globe from, whether it's Canada or the United States to London and Madrid and South Africa and Indonesia. So
yeah, you've been all over the place.
All over the place. Yeah, exactly. But the story behind the Peak Athlete, I guess, and how I got involved with, I'm essentially a mental game coach or sports psychology consultant with professional Olympic athletes. And I do a lot of executive strategy stuff as well, because the two worlds collide rather easily. Because at the end of the day, if I have an umbrella hanging over my head and there's a word that I care about with people, it's performance.
Cool.
And that's kind of where I've built my specialty, is helping people perform at a higher level. Well, the question always is, well, how do you get to that place? And I guess we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But how I got involved with the mental side of stuff was I needed it for myself when I was growing up and a teenager. I was a really good athlete when I was younger. Not to blow my own horn, but it was just the reality.
Sure.
And but a coach pulled me aside when I was in my early teens and said, listen, I know you've got some, goals of playing college football and stuff, but, and you'll probably get there, but no one's going to like you because you're a pain in the ass to coach. You think you know it all, and you're not necessarily a very good leader. So, but he was nice enough not to just kind of leave me in this hole, and handed me a book, or didn't hand me a book, told me a book to go and read. And so I went to the library, grabbed the book, and it talked about leadership. But
what was that book?
You know what? I can't even remember the name of the book.
Sure, that's
to
right.
Be honest, yeah. But the book had mentioned something about basically the mind, and this I sort of fell down this rabbit hole of just reading more and learning more about how the mind works and whatnot. And what I accidentally fell into was really the biological process of how to get into the zone and flow state, which was something that I easily trained myself to do. And of course, the zone and flow is where all of your potential matches up with the performance that you're actually executing when you're in a game, or even in business and life, when you're, writing your book, or when you're, talking to a client or in a sales conversation. You're not concerned with all these external things. You're just completely in this flow of what your competency is.
Yeah, sure.
And so what that meant to me was, it meant that I was always performing at a high level when I was playing. Which then, in and of itself gives you, scholarship offers if you've worked enough at your game. But anyways, when I got done playing college sports, I, just like many people do, I started volunteering at high school, teaching and being around the sport as much as I could. And I talked to the kids more often about, the stuff between their ears than it was the hard work that they were trying to do.
Cool.
Because the metaphor that I use with people all the time is the fly that's bumping up against the window. It's not that he's not working hard and doing the right things. He's just doing it in the wrong order. If he would just sit down on the windowsill and take a look around, he would recognize that there's an open window right next to him, and he could escape and get to the destination that he's trying to get to. And that's what I see most people try and do is it's not for lack of trying. It's just that they're operating it through the wrong lens, or the process is wrong. And I guess what I'm good at is sort of breaking things down into the most ridiculous small task or action, or the highest leverage point in someone's business life or professional sports life, and helping them get the result that they're looking for. And what happened out of that was, because I was, I guess, good at working with people and then getting some good results. A good friend of mine back in Canada runs a large hockey academy and is one of the top hockey trainers on the planet. Works a lot with NHL guys, and brought me in to talk to his academy on a couple of workshops on the mental side. And this wasn't a business. I just loved talking about it.
Sure.
And was maybe good at synthesizing the thoughts down into good actionable items. And they got great results, actually more in school right away than it was on the ice. Yeah. And a bunch of parents came to me right away and said, hey, well, how much would you charge to mentor? And I had no idea what I should charge. And but what I did at that point was, because people knew me and they were asking the question, I was like, I don't even know if this is really a business, though, because are they just asking me because they know me and like me, not necessarily because there's a need in the marketplace for this. So with clients, I operate, and we can talk about this later, about the importance of a 90-day sprint or 90-day theme, and in a person's life. And I decided, okay, well, I'm going to test this out for 90 days. So I resolved to do as many speeches across the province of Alberta as possible in the 90 days. Wow. And I did 68 speeches in 90 days.
Wow.
And I've basically never, and that was 15 years ago, I've never had to market since, because it just built up such a momentum inside the business. And there was a market need for it.
Sure.
Because I was talking about the importance of developing mental toughness, and how sports is one of the greatest conduits to developing phenomenal leaders in society, and how it's really important that we teach these right ways of thinking and approaching your sport, so that we do not just, because today the focus is on, can I get my kid into the NHL or the NBA or the NFL, which is not really the purpose of what sports should be about. And it's a great development ground for developing just great people. So that's basically the story.
Yeah, that's incredible. And the question I have, I guess, first off, once you found out about this mental aspect and stuff like that, obviously, I'm assuming that did you think to yourself, after you discovered this book and it kind of led you down this rabbit hole, did you think to yourself, wow, I can take this knowledge and I could be the best quarterback in the world, or whatever your position was? Did you take it like that, or do you think, wow, this is so unbelievable, I want to share it with everybody, which you're doing today? So when you first kind of discovered this, did you ever think that you would be now, going around the world and talking on all different types of platforms about the mental side when it comes to life, athletics, business, what have you?
No. It was a complete selfish thing. I mean, and rightly so. It was, I had an issue and I was trying to solve it.
Right.
And so it was completely me focused. Like, how can I use these ideas to get myself to a better level? And at the end of the day, I think it's really difficult to teach people when you haven't really experienced the change yourself, or when you haven't experienced the knowledge that you're talking about. I think a person can only get people so far without that. So I'm coming from a place of, I know the content exceptionally well, just because, and my teaching and learning didn't end there. There's a whole other group of layers that help me along the way. I mean, I'm very big on mentorship and very big on finding people that are way further ahead than you and trying to work with them somehow. I mean, I volunteered more time and hours for people that were already doing this, doing research for them or helping them out. Just trying to, by osmosis, learn from them as possible. So no, it was a complete, how can I help Todd with these ideas, get me to the goals that I'm trying to reach?
Sure. So after you discovered this and you started to, and I am, I guess, background on me real quick, I'm one that's trying to go on out and inspire people through, motivation and stuff like that. And I tip my hat to you, running around and doing 68 speeches in 90 days. That's incredible. That is mind blowing. And I can only applaud you for doing that, because you truly did the hustle early on in your career. But when it comes to the mental aspect, what is the number one thing that you found out that affected a lot of kids in schools? Because I know there's a lot of parents that are listening right now. Because you said early on, you were trying to get them mentally prepared for sports, but the first thing that really changed was the academic side. Their schoolwork. Where was that switch, or what was the thing that really changed within those students to have them excel? Not going too deep, but enough that maybe some of the parents listening can take a little tidbit here and apply to their son or daughter.
Sure. So what was probably different about myself than what many parents have been trying to help them out with is because oftentimes I'm telling kids the exact same things their parents are telling them. It's just that, of course, the kid is looking at me through a completely different lens.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes the kid looks at you and says, "Well, of course you have to say these things and tell me that you believe in me because I'm kind of your kid. You sort of have to tell me that." Whereas me, I'm coming in as quote unquote authority figure, and so
Right.
they view what I'm saying through a different lens. But more importantly, what I give people is I'm really big on models and systems and frameworks. I don't think people need more content. I think what they need is more context, and they need a picture to see things through then as well, because we're human beings are just naturally so visual. There's a great study that was done on television watching, and because I know this simply because I work in this idea of how can I get my clients into a zone and flow state so often. And what they discovered was after about 29 seconds of watching the television, the brain's electrical systems have basically mapped and matched themselves to falling into a zone and flow state. So really, just 29 seconds into flicking on a television,
Wow.
if you're watching it, you'll actually be caught into a zone state, which is why that couch or sofa is so sticky.
Yeah.
Once you sit into it, it's very difficult to get up from it. And it's just the environmental impact of watching that television. So so when I'm teaching people, I like to use pictures a lot. And so I head to a whiteboard or, pull out a sheet of paper and draw stuff. And so what I did with those kids was just sort of show them like, listen, like this is actually all human beings are made up, basically, working on three different planes. There's a thought and thinking type plane, and there's an emotional or feelings plane that we all, experience the world through. And then there's the actual behavioral plane. This is the part that we all sort of then take all those thoughts that we're feeling or thinking about ourselves or feeling about the world, and then we apply it somehow because that's sort of the information that we've got going on inside of ourselves. So there's a thinking world, a feeling world, and a behavioral world. And if you could put those three things inside of circles, now kids kind of understand, okay, yeah, I think some way about myself, which is going to cause me to feel some way about myself. And then it's going to cause me to act in a certain way. So if I think I'm not good at math, I'm going to feel bad when I'm in math class, or I'm going to feel an avoidant behavior about my math homework, because when I get home and I have homework to do, and I've got 4 courses that I have to do my homework in, I'm probably going to go after what? I'm going to do the work on the one that is the one I'm most excited about, or the one that I know I'm good at. And then what happens is we deplete our intellectual resources. So we get done that work, which was maybe a little bit difficult, and then we get on to the next class that we kind of like, and then we've backloaded our homework doing the classwork that we least like, and now all of because human beings have resources that deplete over the day.
Right.
And now I'm not giving myself a very good chance of being successful in that class simply because I've used up a lot of my intellectual horsepower getting through those other 3 courses of homework. And my last one, of course, I'm going to continue to struggle. And now I'm just on this hamster wheel of struggle. So if we move that one to the front, do the hard one first. Or maybe you're not even bad in that class. It's just because you're thinking that you are. So I think I'm bad. I feel like I'm bad. And then what happens when I get my, report back from my teacher? It says D+, C+. And then I simply go back to, because now the feedback loop is closed, and I go, yep, see, there you go. C+ or D-. I'm bad at math class,
Right.
or whatever the case is. And this loop just continuously runs with people. And so that was it. It was just sort of drawing out circles for people and showing, or in my case, I drew it like a stick figure and kind of showed the flow, arrows and stuff of how that kind of permeates itself through our lives. And that was the thing that resonated with the kids.
Yeah.
My thing with athletics is if I'm working with an amateur athlete below the age of 18 and they're not playing professionally or making money doing what they do, I don't just work with them on athletics. I apply these principles to other areas of their life, because the reality of an athlete is if you're feeling stressful in one area, it seems to find its way into and onto the field of play. If you're feeling completely or if you have a complete lack of confidence in many other areas of your life, and the only thing you're confident about is your athletics, that's like sitting on a stool with one leg.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one day comes along and you tweak your hamstring. Now all of a sudden you lose a little bit of confidence in your ability to execute on the field of play. Now that stool becomes even more wobbly, and life falls apart for people. So I'm trying to help them put more pegs underneath that stool so that they're sitting on a solid base.
Yeah. No, that's really powerful. And the way that you break it down, and like you said, your frameworks are, I've heard you speak before, and your frameworks are awesome. And you really are in tune of breaking down things to a level that the student can understand. And even along that journey of how you were telling those students about math class, but you just replaced math class with, business or your new, project you're working on, whatever.
Yeah. And that's, which is precisely why, I'm able to kind of, move from different fields, even though I work a lot with professional athletes, and I don't just work with one sport. I've worked in something like 76 different sports already, because at the end of the day, the human being doesn't change.
Right.
Now, the content of what they're trying to do changes, but I'm not trying to be an expert on their sport. I'm trying to be an expert with them on crawling into their ears and helping them out, tinker away at and removing a lot of the stuff that's causing the friction in their sport. And you can just, exactly like you said, you can easily transport that into the business world or the educational world or something like that. And I'm more influenced by Einstein's thoughts on simplicity, or Bruce Lee, who was all about breaking things down to the most ridiculous and simple part of martial arts, than I am about trying to add a whole bunch of content to Jacob's life. I think people need less of that. It's a subtractive process, not an additive process.
Yeah. And that's one thing I always talk about. And I always say, actually, in the beginning of all my podcasts before, I would always start with a quote. Hey, today's quote. Quotes are only as good as what you take away from it. And some of them are really deep and passionate and stuff like that. But even a quote, I feel, is sometimes a little more overly complex than what it needs to be, And that's why I stopped doing it, because I was like, I love quotes. I think they're inspirational. But they're inspirational for that split second. You're like, oh, wow, yeah, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. Now what? You know what I mean? So you're always looking for the next thing. But with you, you're really able to break it down and show people the process. The thing that I wanted to ask you that, because you said you worked with, 76 different sports or what have you, and all different types of people, all people deal with the same problems. Are you finding out, it doesn't matter if you're talking to Tom Brady, the quarterback of New England, or Jake Naraki, the guy that has this podcast, we all have kind of the same, I don't want to say issues, but mental roadblocks that are holding us back. Would you say? Okay. And what is that number one thing that when you start working with a client for the first time, they say to you, Todd, I blank. What's that one thing that they always bring out and talk to you about, and how can you solve it for them?
Well, I think there'd be two things actually. Okay. It's I'm always kind of opposed to saying, hey, if there's one secret to success.
Well, I
but if there's a very common thread.
Yes, common thread. Thank you.
A lot of people together is that many of the athletes that I've worked with really battle with judgment and criticism, and the way that kind of shows itself in many ways is when I'm asking them, okay, well then why aren't you pulling up and shooting that? If there's 10 seconds left in the game, why aren't you the one who's then shooting the shot to try to win the game, if it's basketball, say, for example? Right. And people don't necessarily come out and explicitly say it, but the thing that they really battle with is, what are my friends going to think? What are my teammates going to think of me? What's coach going to say to me? Because they live in this world where mistakes are penalized in many ways. And that's a complete different conversation. Talking to coaches about one of their core tenets I should be rewarding young athletes in the development stage of their sport for making mistakes, because the more that you penalize a child for making a mistake, the more they're going to go into their shell and not try to extend themselves for you and continue to learn and grow and, blow up their experiences. Right. So judgment and criticism is a really, really big thing for many people. So like in your world or in a business world, it's, worrying about, if I do this and I fail, what are my friends going to think me? People are going to say, see, I told you so. And it's this conversation in people's heads predicting the events before they ever happen. And 99% of the time, it never would ever come close to being that way, if they did execute, because we're our own worst enemies with the world that we construct in our own head. So it's usually working through that self-criticism, or that worrying about judgment, anxiety and stress. It's a very common thing for many people.
It is.
And then the second thing is, many people don't take the action, because at the end of the day, this is about, what our conversation is about, is how can we get people to take more action,
right.
and whether it's more action towards changing a behavior, changing habits, or, working on some other, level of themselves. And it's because most people really aren't very clear about where they're trying to get to. And it's a challenging thing, because again, we really haven't been taught the right way to think and how to use this fantastic tool we have between our ears, and coming up with a right decision for people. And again, it comes back down to, if we can break things down into and we give people a really good decision framework that they can operate from, then we're getting them a lot closer to being able to, live a life that they're hoping for or they want for themselves.
Sure. Do you believe that the number one thing to get past these barriers of not taking action or not having a clear enough plan or the judgment is truly within ourselves, within our mindset?
Oh, well, of course it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of factors that go into mindset, right? Like, it's one thing that's often overlooked and is rarely given to people as a prescription for something that they should really incorporate in their life. But environment is just so important, whether it's getting around the people who've already made the change that you're looking for. So if instead of me trying to implement a new running program for Todd, if I haven't been running, or if I have never even started running, then get around a running club.
Yes.
And get to know those people. Don't just see it as a running club. See it as a great way to meet people as well, because the more that you get emotionally engaged with a group, the more you're going to want to be around that group. So if you look at it just as a conduit for me to to learn how to run better and get myself in shape, that's a very surface way of looking at it, and that's fine. It's not very deep, but when you plant that seed deep into the ground and it becomes an emotional resource for you as well, those roots have just sunk themselves very deep into your psyche, and it's going to pull you to wanting to be out there with them more and more and more. Environment is so important. I mean, the Renaissance, why was the Renaissance the most prolific time in art? Why was there so much phenomenal art created, sculptures, paintings, written works back then? And it was because there was an attitude that you always apprenticed. So it was always someone, whether it was Raphael learning under Michelangelo or Michelangelo learning under someone else, there was this constant apprenticeship that was happening. And people have really gotten away from that. And it's one of the fastest ways to accelerate your personal growth. Many people want the end result tomorrow because we live in a fast food world.
Yes.
We've been very much, and it's environmental again. That's what it is. Our environment has been teaching us that it's possible, that the fast food world's possible. Well, it's not. You can't apply that system to everything in life.
Right.
You can't apply that to knowledge acquisition and wisdom and experience. It just takes more time than that. And well, how can I compress that time then? I'll get around someone who's done it. And not only have they done it, it also helps obviously that they're a very good teacher as well, or mentor to you.
Sure. And that's why you're big. You really push finding a mentor, a coach, somebody to latch onto. You're a product of what you're surrounded with. And I'm a big component of that too. If you want to change yourself, go on meetup.com and search for groups in your local area. Start a group or something like that.
Sure.
And get yourself surrounded by those individuals, because if you surround yourself with lazy, fat people, chances are you're going to be lazy and fat. And
Sure.
let's go through the one thing that I really love about yourself. You have amazing examples and stuff like that, and your detail of understanding how things happen within our bodies. Let's go through the process of a gentleman that wants to start working out. Okay, let's go through the habit process. If you mind breaking that down, and the chemical releases and everything that happens within our body to get us into a position of now starting to work out more and more.
Sure. So the common experience that many people have with anything they're trying to change in their life is they'll always butt up against this resistance thing that is they feel stopping them or preventing them, or it's just forces inside and outside that make it difficult. So what actually happens from a chemical or biological part of our body is the cells in our body, all of them have receptor points on the outside of them. And these receptor points are to allow for chemical bonds to happen. And it's a way of exchanging information inside the body. It's like, a phone call, that connects into that receptor point on the cell. So all of our cells are constantly replicating themselves. They duplicate over and over. They're constantly splitting and replicating. Now, if I have a cell and it replicates, it's going to replicate itself to match with the last cell because it's passing off information. It's going to continuously create the same types of cells over and over and over again. Now, if we have a body that's constantly stressed out and anxious, that means we're dumping cortisol, a stress hormone, constantly in our throughout our bloodstream and really from the amygdala, the center of our brain, and our cells are constantly getting that chemical information that lands into those receptor points. And so if that cell replicates, what's it going to want more of? It's going to send a signal up, hey, I need some more of this bond to come down and bond with me. And then we get this sense of stress in our body, and we're doing it to ourselves.
Right.
Now, when we're starting on a new habit, now I actually finally make the decision to commit to working out every morning at 7 o'clock before I head off to work. And day one, bam, like I've got my plan. I'm excited. I bought the DVDs or whatever I did.
The new gym shorts, right?
The new gym shorts. Yeah, exactly. And so, I've got no excuses. I'm going to do this. I'm going to work out. So I go to the gym. Man, I feel great. Because exercise and movement automatically dumps dopamine and endorphins, the positive hormones into our body. And
right.
Of course, they're going to flood our body. And so our cells are going to what? They're going to accept them because that's the information that's being given to us. Okay. But remember, like the cells are more used to getting cortisol. So if cortisol is shaped like a square and dopamine and endorphins are shaped like triangles, the triangles come down and they try to morph themselves into a square peg, and they'll force their way in, but we're feeling good. So day 2 comes around, and we're still motivated because yesterday was good. I felt really good. And so I go and I work out again, feeling great. Yeah, this is a great way to start my day. And then day 3 comes around. Now, just a part of the muscular part of working out is day 3 is usually when pain starts to set in, because the nature of working out is muscles tear and they're going to have to repair themselves. So day 3, we're really, really sore.
Right.
But we fight through it and we go and work out, despite the fact that we're starting to feel a little bit of resistance. And so this biological process happening inside for our cells is as we're flooding our body with more of these positive things, the cells are starting to like vibrate to accept them. And what we do is we feel this kind of like new sensation that's going on inside of ourselves. And it's new. And we say, oh, this, and depending on how we think of life, we either go, oh, this doesn't feel right for me. And so maybe I should, or maybe this isn't, and you start saying, well, maybe I shouldn't be going up and doing, like weights. I should maybe run instead. Right. And then we start to question ourselves. So then when day 4 comes around, we avoid going to the gym. And then day 5, we end up just, quitting on it type of thing. And it's simply because we misread what was happening inside of our body. The cells are changing for us. They're actually, one step away from completely morphing into wanting dopamine and endorphins sent to them all the time. And how do we get dopamines and endorphins? I get Jacob the idea, hey, I'm going to go for a walk.
Right.
Or I feel like going and working out. And it becomes this self-perpetuating, operation in your life.
Yeah.
So this biological process is happening all of the time. And when people come to understand, like when I explain this stuff to clients or when I'm doing speeches and I explain this to people can relax into it now. When you know that this is going to be what's happening, day 4 and day 5 and day 7 and day 8, you are not going to be feeling all positive about doing the thing. And the reality is you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's just because the body needs to change as well. not just your mind needs to change, your body needs to change.
Yeah. And I find that very, like you just said, you kind of relax into it because if you know it's coming, it's like
Yeah.
you go to the doctor, hey, this shot's really going to hurt. Oh boy. All right. You start to kind of prepare yourself, as opposed to, oh, you look at this, pretty picture and then he jabs you with this huge needle. Oh my God. I wasn't expecting that. But like you said, now people really understand and everything like that. Where did you learn this from? Is this from not only talking to clients, but understanding the chemical side of the body and how it works? It was really easy for yourself to kind of connect the two?
Well, this is where it's, you try to surround yourself with people that are way smarter than yourself.
Sure.
I mean, I have two neuroscience researchers that are on staff that we work with from, one's from a European university and one's from a, university here in America.
Wow.
And they're constantly sending me research. But I mean, I'm diving into like very deep research papers and case studies and, finding, because we're constantly uncovering how the body
Right.
works and how the brain works. We're not even anywhere near close
Sure.
as to, I mean, the stuff that's being shared today, even about how our brain works, will be, morphed and changed somehow in a decade from now, because there's just so much time and energy that's being spent in this field of work. So it's from that, really, is that understanding, and then maybe what I'm good at is taking that very complex stuff, breaking it down into digestible information so that people go, oh, give them some sort of insights that gives them an empowerment to take over their lives in many ways.
Yeah, and thanks for doing that because it's really interesting to me, and I know the people that are listening. I mean, you're helping a lot of people break it down and allow them to get a better clarity when it comes to processes in their life. The one big thing that people ask me all the time, they send me emails and stuff. They feel uncomfortable going with decisions that come in their life, either left or right or wrong. Oh man, I know I should be, taking this risk when it comes to investment, but it's a rental property. That means I'm going to have to invest time, money, energy, getting it up to shape, but the risk is worth the reward. What do you say with people that really feel torn when it comes to decisions in their life? And it doesn't need to be, real estate or investment related, but overall, have you encountered people that just feel like they can't make a decision on anything and they're always weighing them against each other?
Yeah, well, I mean, it gets back to, I mean, Einstein always had a great quote, and I reference it all the time. But he said that if I was given a problem and given 60 minutes to solve that problem, I would spend 55 minutes on asking myself the right question, because the last 5 minutes, the question takes care of the problem. The question takes care of the solution. Most people are asking themselves really bad questions, which there's so much presupposition, meaning that they're presupposing that the thing is the problem when in reality it's not the problem. They're just asking themselves bad questions. So when it comes to making better decisions, most people's resistance towards the decision is, again, it's based on complete comfort zone.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my framework for decision making is, because I believe, and it's not even that I believe, but even from a performance side of things, people perform at very high levels when they wrap their tasks or the framework for which they view their life around is this going to help me grow as a person or grow as a professional? Am I going to learn something from this? Meaning, am I going to develop some competencies and skills from this possibly, which could then be transferred into many other areas of my life, which makes me more valuable? Is this going to be a new experience for me? So is it an adventure that I'm going to be going on, that I'm going to be, learning and discovering more things about myself? And there's some core words there that are important, which are discovery, experiencing, learning, growing. Those are all 4 powerful words that have nothing to do with, am I going to be getting something? Am I going to get the car? Am I going to get, so people who operate in this physical world of how can I get this thing? Whereas I'm more of I care more about, am I going to learn from this, grow from this? Am I going to be experiencing something completely new, which then adds to my, bank of wisdom? Because without experience, there's no wisdom. People passively learn constantly. They're reading tons of books and they're not applying anything. Well, that's just creating cognitive waste. That's just piling more and more information and data on top of each other, which of course causes people to not to question themselves because they're like, oh, I read that person, he says to do this, and I read this person, and they said to do that, and then they end up just avoiding it and not doing anything. So spinning their wheels. So for me, that's my decision-making process. Is this thing going to help me learn? Is this thing going to help me grow as a professional or as a dad or as a husband? And is this thing going to help me experience something new about myself or the world around me? And then the very last piece is, okay, and I talked about this before about how when I'm working with, whether it's myself or with clients, I work in 90-day themes and 90-day sprints. And that's about helping me achieve something really big fast. So I focus on 1 or 2, maybe 3 things at the very most for my business or life in general. And it focuses my 90 days. My next 90 days is all about, say, content creation. So I'm focusing a ton on creating videos, writing more articles, getting a book out. And so that's where my focus becomes. And now when someone comes to me and says, hey, Todd, we're going to be going on a trip to Mexico, but it happens to land within my 90-day theme, I'm like, oh, I can't do it because my 90-day theme is not about travel right now. My 90-day theme is about, something different. Or if it's, if it's a fitness thing, if my 90-day theme is all about, I want to get my body fat as low as possible. I just want to see how low I can get my body fat. So if someone comes to me with a choice of, hey, Todd, do you want a chocolate cake? It doesn't fall into my theme. Right. So I can quickly say no to that. It's about cutting stuff away. Yeah. That's what the word decision is. When you link the word decision back to its root in Latin, it's decidue is the Latin word for it. And decidue means to cut away. So that's what I'm trying to help people do with their lives, is to cut away a whole bunch of strings and, chains that are holding them back. So we cut it away. And the easiest way to do that is just find a framework, live within the framework, whether it's 90 days, what's your next 90 days going to be about?
That is awesome.
And then it becomes easier to make those decisions. And then, okay, well then what's the theme of my life? The theme of Todd's life, obviously, is that I'm all about seeing how much I can learn and grow and experience and discover about the world around me and about myself before I, hit that, 6 feet in the ground type of thing. Well, that's going to help me make a whole bunch of easier decisions in my life.
For sure. Then what do you say to the guy that you talk to and goes, well, I want the Ferrari, the mansion, the oceanside property, all these things. He wants more of the materialistic things when you are focused on growing experiences, connections, whatever. What do you say to that person?
Well, I mean, I call it pulling the red thread. Now, the red thread really doesn't mean anything, but I find that, when it's when you've got a thread on your shirt and you're pulling it, things start to unravel.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing with someone, when I'm asking them lots of questions, or if I'm consulting with a company, I'm pulling the thread to find out what is this core thing that they're trying to get towards. So if you want the Ferrari, okay, well, that's interesting. What is it about the Ferrari why not a Lamborghini? What is it about the Ferrari?
Okay.
And I'm going to continue to ask more and more questions like because again, you're getting the Ferrari because you want some sort of experience from that.
Right.
You're getting the Ferrari because I want to have the experience that I pull up in front of the restaurant and the valet comes out, people can see me get out of that. Okay, well then what is it about that? That's really interesting that you want that experience of people looking at you getting out of the Ferrari. What's that about?
Sure.
And it's not about judgment. It's fine to have that experience. Yeah. It's fine to have that. It's just make sure that we know ahead of time the dominoes that we're lining up for ourselves in our lives, so that we don't stack our dominoes up against an end result that we actually just don't want.
Oh, dude, Todd, that is awesome. You are good. I mean, you are really good. You took that Ferrari thing and you brought it back around to experience and whatever. Oh my God. Dude, Todd, you're awesome, man. Honestly, I have 15 questions of how we can help, the community of Operation Self Reset and all this stuff. But honestly, we knocked out 99% of them throughout your stories, examples, because it's what you're saying. It has many hats. It can apply to anybody and everybody. Obviously, a little more tailored, a little more detail oriented. I can only believe what you have in your arsenal. But
that's the idea of a good model, though, Jake. Too, is that a good model should be able to be applied to many different things in life, because when something becomes so specific, it starts to lose its resonant value for people. Like, I want to give people a tool that can be used in many ways and can be applied in many ways, so that they don't have to continue to relearn and add more content to their life. Because again, I want to simplify things for people. I want to subtract stuff that they're doing, so that they have more time to give more value and be of service to more and more people.
Cool. Todd, last question I got for you. What does a self-reset mean for you?
Self-reset to me means taking a good hard look at the results that I'm currently experiencing, and then asking myself, are they working for me? And if they're not, creating a completely different group of actions and behaviors that hit the reset button on that 90 days from now. So that when I reflect back, I go, oh, I really like the things I did in the last 90 days because I love the position that I'm in today.
Cool. And for the people listening, what do you think? 90 days to transform their life, to do something different? What do you think?
Do I think they can do it in 90 days?
Yeah. Do you think they can do it in 90 days?
Yeah, but I wouldn't make it as big as an entire life, because that's it's the quality of the question that we ask ourselves.
That's right. See, good. See, that was a test for you. Good job.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's a test, right? But it's like, pick one or two things. Like, if there's one thing that's really stressing you out in your personal and professional life, use the 90-day approach to fixing that one thing. I mean, because it's a very loaded idea that I want to be a perfect person. No. I can't be a perfect person, but I can be a hell of a lot better 90 days from now. And the great thing about doing these, because it's this feedback loop, there's all of these other hidden dominoes we drop when we start to really work on one skill. It's amazing how much it permeates so many other areas of our life. When we just focus on one thing, that mastery level can be taken into so many other parts of our life, and help us out in ways that we would never have expected. That's why the 90-day thing for me is always, I'm really excited to see what happens 90 days from now.
Cool. Well, I'm excited too, because I got to set my sights high and knock something out here in 90 days. So Todd, honestly, man, I appreciate it. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, if people want to, again, I really don't have a large online presence, simply because, and that's going to be changing, but it's simply because I've been working so much in the corporate and, sort of in the background of in the sports world. But if they want to, you can get a hold of me at thepeakathlete.com. That's that's the site I use for working with people in the sports world. But, many other people reach out to me that have no interest on the sports side, but they're executives or business owners in that vertical, I guess.
Sure. Todd, honestly, it's a true honor to have you on. You really blew open my mind, and I believe you have inspired a lot of my listeners. So I thank you for your information. Thanks for your knowledge, and continue to do the great work on the mindset research, because without you, I think you're really spearheading a new idea and a way to look at ourselves to get everything that we want out of our lives. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on, Jacob.
Thanks. My man, Todd, thank you very much for coming on the Operation Self Reset podcast. And if you guys are interested in getting in touch with Todd, and you will say, hey, Todd, what's up? I'm so-and-so. Loved your interview. Head on over to osreset.com/episode number 52, and you can catch out all the ways to get in contact with Todd to see what he's all about. Great guy, really, really cool dude, and he gets the whole mental aspect of life. And I think you guys pulled a couple of tidbits out of that interview to help in your own personal life. Again, if you guys are interested in getting in contact with me, you have a personal problem, you have a question, you got a person that you would like to get on this podcast, you have a suggestion for somebody, or you have an amazing story yourself, I would love to hear about it. Send me an email, ask@osreset.com. And if you're interested with working with me one-on-one to plan out your 90-day sprint, send me an email, ask@osreset.com. well, keep in touch. I'll give you 30 minutes of my time. Maybe we can figure something out and bounce around a couple ideas to get yourself on track towards success, because what good is knowledge if you're not able to share it? And I believe I am gaining knowledge every single podcast and episode and really expanding my horizons. And I realize a lot of things when it came to my own personal business and my own personal life. And if you need assistance, I will share my, I don't want to say secrets, but my ideas that work. And I truly want to help you. I am truly in debt to you guys for allowing me to produce this podcast so you guys can keep on listening. I don't even think that made sense, but you know what? We're going to go with it. So take care, guys. Have a great rest of your week. Make sure to check out Motivational Minute Mondays, and we will catch you next week for another episode of Operation Self Reset. We'll see ya.